She's Trixie, I'm Sarah, and this is our Yarn World, a place where we come together and we share our love for the yarn crafts and the anchor that sometimes it is in our life. You know, it's a thing to do when
there's nothing else to do.
So, we do want to make it clear that today is the first filming in 2021. It's episode 6, and today is January 7th. I do like to explain that because we generally film the Thursday before we post. So if there's any confusion on dates, that's just why. It just gives us time to be able to look over the video, and if we need to change anything, we have the time before we actually post.
Yes.
But no, we have so much fun things to share with you guys today. We have a fun finished object. We have some fun
acquisitions,
some fun progress on some of the things that we've been working on together here. And we are just ready to sit down and spend some time with you today. So if you'd like to grab something to drink and be able to get comfortable with your craft, we will get started. Today we are having some fruit cocktail. It's just some juice that my husband picked up. It's cranberry pineapple, I do believe.
And it's really, really good.
And so, yeah, Mom wanted to have something different, and she liked the glasses that I pulled out, so.
Yeah, they're, they say country fair drinking jar. And they have a rooster right in the middle of it. I know you can't see it, but it's really, really cute. And it's fun to drink out of.
They kind of look like some mason jars with a handle. But it doesn't have the typical mason jar logo because it's not. I got this stuff at like the dollar store. That was a long time ago too.
It works.
It does work, and they are very nice to have. Well, I guess we'll get started with finished objects.
Yeah.
So a couple episodes ago, I showed that I had many finished, at the time, works in progress whips that I had accumulated over my COVID period, where I had a whole bunch of ideas and I was trying to pursue and get them through, but then I would end up realizing that my stash could not support my dreams at the time.
Not having enough yarn sucks.
Especially when you have COVID, you can't go do anything about it. Well, anyway, my husband was able to pick up more yarn, and I've been able to slowly get that whip pile lower. And the thing that we finally got done is the poof ottoman for my big comfy chair.
Yay!
And this thing's big, so bear in mind, I am sorry if this doesn't fit the whole frame. Ugh. This thing's huge.
Oh, it's so pretty and soft though.
This is just a generalized pattern. It doesn't come with any sort of, it comes with inspiration, but I just made it up as I went along, so I really have nothing to like go off of, like share with you a particular pattern or creator or design link. I kind of just went on Pinterest and I looked up. These are called poofs when you make them with yarn. It's P-O-U-F. So if you go on like Pinterest or Google and you just write in crochet or knit poofs, you have plenty of resources and links and tutorials for something, even on YouTube. Even here, I've seen free designs for how to do this.
It's
but
so nice.
I just started from the middle, and I went until I thought that this was as big as I would want it, and then I stopped increasing, and I just started going up, and I would do every other one. I would do a regular double crochet and then a front post. And then when I got as tall as I wanted it to be, I just started decreasing. But because I wanted the rib effect to still happen, I just decreased, but I made sure that the front posts were still happening.
Right.
But here's the thing, when you're doing front posts and you're decreasing, then front posts are being put together. They're, you know, because that separation is not there. But I just kept going. I just was like, you know what? I just want that texture feel. It doesn't have to look perfect. The feet are going to get on top of it. My 2-year-old and 1-year-old are going to go crazy on it. So it's not like it has to be perfect anyway. And I do realize I chose white. It wasn't a smart move, but it is pretty. I'm enjoying it. I used blankets that were not being used or just like, it's kind of like those fleece blankets that you get that that random Christmas present from the church pass along gift. That it's like the $5 fleece blanket that was really nicely packaged. So they gifted it to you, but you never use because it's so small. Yeah, a whole bunch of those are in here. Thank you, church. But it really it stuffed pretty nicely, just with some nice blankets that just needed a new use.
Yeah.
Some of the best stuffing methods I have ever learned, even with quilting with my mom's tip, was to just get some sort of fleece blanket that was already perfectly cut and sized and just use that as the batting.
Yeah.
Because it's
a lot cheaper than the batting is.
Yes, and with stuff like this, instead of going and buying a whole bunch of polyfill,
right?
Oh
my gosh,
which you can do, but then you really have to be careful, because if you have pets, you don't want them to get through, because this is still pretty big and it has some easy access holes if it was dug through,
right?
And if you have pets in the home, you don't want that to be all ripped out.
Plus, the polyfill tends to
give more.
It lowers and it packs, and
over time
it doesn't stay as filled as you want it to. The blankets aren't going to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't keep its shape depending on how it's being used. And with something like this where feet and weight's going to be put on it, you want something that's going to be tougher. Another idea for filling is maybe if you go to a local Goodwill or something, you can grab some cheap clothes like t-shirts or something and just use that for stuffing. You want something that has some general give, but you don't want something that is so stiff fabrics that would make it very uncomfortable to put your feet on. But just t-shirts, old flannels, you could pick something like that up and use it for stuffing for something like this that's furniture.
Right.
But no, it's done. I enjoyed it after I decreased it enough, and it got to, it was every single stitch on the round was a decrease. Right. It was like decrease, like no separation in the middle.
Right.
I just took one of the end yarn after I'd cut it, and I just went through all the front posts and drawstringed it closed, and that's the end. That's all that it was. So that's my finished object, and I'm excited to use it. This is going to be great. And these are really good ideas for kids' chairs. If you have a lot of grandchildren or nieces and nephews, or you're just around a lot of kids, you have daycare maybe even, these are really good ideas to make like small versions just for everyone to have their own chair in the living room that they can just have fun with, and just, it's portable, it's easy, it's light, and depending on what you put inside of it, if you make it a drawstring that you can actually open back up again, you can take the stuff out of it, refresh it, wash it. It would make it easier. It all depends on how you make it, and it really is a simple thing that if you are new, it's a good beginner's project. So don't be intimidated. This is something that you can do with knit as well as crochet. So just because I crocheted it doesn't mean it can't be knit. Like I said, YouTube, Google, and Pinterest has plenty of links to free designs that you don't have to pay for that will give you a good idea as to how to do this. And I really do suggest it. It's really fun to have something that is like a staple. Most people have an ottoman or a footstool in their home, but when you're able to be like, yeah, I made that. That wasn't from TJ Maxx. That wasn't like I
did that myself.
And it can be fun because depending on how you do it, you can have it striped.
Yeah.
Just your imagination can do whatever you want with it.
And whatever kind of yarn.
I found some people that did polka dots with stuff like that.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Like it almost looks like a top of a toadstool. I I saw
Oh
some
my gosh.
people's version of it was a donut. They made a donut, so it
Yes.
kind of had a hole in the middle.
That's what I was thinking. This kind of looked like a nice cake.
Yeah, but it actually had a hole in the middle, but it was so
Oh, that's so cool.
fluff that the hole wasn't that big, so it still operated as an ottoman. It had the frosting with sprinkles that you made
Oh my
each piece
gosh.
for, and so it's really fun. And
People are so creative.
I really want to make one of those for my kid at some point this year, my daughter. So, you'll probably be seeing that at some point. And that's the only finished object for today. We do have some whips that we can share. All right.
Yeah.
Is it my...
Yeah.
Do you want me to do it first?
Yes.
Okay. I started on a cardigan.
You forgot to show the yarn.
Oh, my bad. The yarn that I used for the poof was the Bernate blanket yarn. It's just like that kind of really soft blanket yarn. It's polyester, 100% polyester yarn. It's very nice. The gauge that is generally used on this for... That's knit, right? Yeah. For crochet is an 8mm, a USL, size 11, depending on what brand you're getting it from. And for knitting, it's the same thing. It's a 8mm or a US 11. It's pretty cool. I really do suggest it. It's very nice on the hands.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really think this is a project that it's like a good starter. Like, it gives you a lot of like satisfaction when it's done because it's a daily staple use item, and
you'll see it every day.
And I know this is gonna be weird, but like, or maybe not weird, but this is also a good project to do with kids, because like it is something, a functional thing where it could be transformed into like a chair, or depending on what size you make it. I'd see some of them that on Pinterest that were the size of like almost the size of like coffee tables.
Oh wow.
That people would make, and they were tall, and they were almost the size of bean bags. Like, people could just throw their kids on it, like let their kids lay on it, it was almost like a bed for the living room, but people could put their feet on it, lay on it, use it as a chair. And it's like, it's
multiple uses. That's always good.
And I've seen these ideas in kid pattern books, making your own ottoman, because it's a really cool idea. And depending on the ability, like the attention span of your child, if you don't want to do the circle where it's all one piece, because that can be overwhelming, you can make a cube. So just do a one decent sized square at a time, and you just have to do all 6 sides. Yeah. And then you would stuff it and sew it together, and then all of a sudden it says...
See, now I could do that.
So it would be one... It would be the goal of having one piece at a time for even just the kids, but it would be fun. And I don't know. I was a kid crafter, so I think that would be fun to do. My mom wasn't crafting with yarn at the time that I got interested in it. Right. I learned how to do it via my grandma. Yeah. So, and then a friend with knitting. And so for me, I didn't have the parent that would help push me along to make bigger stuff than I did. I would just make small purses or bags or whatever. Right. But if you are trying to get your kid interested in something like this, I really do suggest making something fun for their room. Like, it really gets their imagination going, and you could be helping your child along with becoming a pattern designer. You don't know.
There you go. Yeah, you just never know.
Now, back to the whips. I did mention that last week when I was showing all my Christmas acquisitions, my husband had given me yarn to make for the cardigan I wanted to make. Right. I said that, right? Yep. Yeah, I did show that. Yep. I think last week I was just coming up on...
you were done with row 26.
26? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I was close to row 30. That's what I was about to say. I just finished row 50 today. So it's starting to get there. Ooh. the design of it is to make a rectangle, and then it's really hard to explain the specific construction of the rectangle, but eventually you're pretty much making it thick enough where that one side of the rectangle of the length would be able to, from this angle, from this angle, be able to wrap around half your body. Because you're pretty much making it where this will become a seam, and then this will wrap around you. So it would be this would be like an open. Does that make sense?
It's really thick too.
Well,
I like it.
So for me, the original pattern was that with the size that I chose from the pattern, I chose a large because I like more cozy cardigans. And so I'm supposed to go up until 84 rows. So I'm doing pretty good, I would say.
You're over half now.
Yeah. But here's the problem. I kept mentioning that I felt like this was still not building as large as what a large would be. Like, it was, for how I knew this was going to be constructed afterward, I could tell that it was still small. I could tell that the length compared to how dense each row was, like the gauge of the stitches, was coming out smaller than what the design had intended. And so I'm sitting there being like, what did I do wrong? I have the right yarn weight, I have the right hook, and then I looked and realized that the hook that I had chosen from the start was the wrong size. It was the size under that was instructed to be a part of this pattern. So the hook that I wanted was right beside the hook that I picked up.
I'll just have to make more rows, right?
Which means that the way that I have to compromise to continue on with the pattern, because I'm not going to start over,
right,
is I have to go past 84 rows until it is going to fit me comfortably. And because I've already understood the pattern to its fullest, I am confident enough that I would be able to determine at what time it is okay to stop.
Yeah.
And then I have to add to its length after I have finished constructing it. Sadly, because of the hook size I chose, it is also shorter than it needed to be. Like, it went almost like 2 sizes smaller.
Oh gosh.
Than what it was supposed to be because I picked the wrong needle. So, kids, adults, people out there, you should check and make sure that you're reading your pattern correctly instead of acting like you know what you're doing. Like me.
Oh gosh.
But luckily, I know what to do to fix it.
Right.
And I am still very happy with this pattern, and I'm very excited to see how it's going to turn out. I'm hoping that I'll be closer to 84 rows by the time you see me next week.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that.
Lesson learned.
Yep. So, what do you got today?
Well, the yarn that Sarah gave me last week, remember she said, oh, I've got a whole bunch of yarn that you can use for your blacks. Well, she did, and I took it home and I balled it all up, like I was saying, with the invisible knot, and I was able to make 34 blacks out of that, so I was grateful. And I counted this morning, and before I got here, and I have 107 solid blocks and 73 of the crazy color fun different kind of blocks. And so
blocks with multiple yarn changes.
Yes, or
color changes,
yeah,
or crazy ombres, or
yeah,
whatever.
So altogether right now I have 180. Now, one blanket takes 176. So I would have had enough to do a blanket had I just stuck with the original. But I didn't. So now I got to do this again, enough to make 2 of them. So it's okay though. I think it's going to be great, and I've gotten a whole lot of joy just getting these blocks done, and I'll have joy putting the borders around them. I'll have joy putting the tying the ends in and putting it all together. It's all process for me, so I don't mind that.
The reason why she's going past what what you keep neglecting to say is that in the last video she did kind of touch on this, but there are some of the colors that are a little bit more muted, a lot calmer to the eye, and then some that are very neon, fun, funky colors. So what she's going to do is to keep the Afghan from being very overly stimulating. She wants one to have all the bright, crazy changes and colorful display, while the other one still stays muted.
Yes.
So, because her original idea was to use up all of her muted and very calm colors on one blanket, and she was using all her remnant yarns on that had that similarity in the yarn, and then she realized that she kind of didn't have a lot of that, and so she started using all her neons, but she still wanted the blanket to be cohesive in its look and its tones. So she's just going to continue on until she has enough for 2.
Yep.
With one being a little bit more muted and one being loud, fun and bright. So yeah, and I really am going to like seeing that, because I had asked her if she wanted, I don't know if I had said it in the video or if I said this after, but the idea of bordering it. So every single...
yeah, you said it in the last video.
Oh, I did, okay.
To border each of them so that there are little pictures.
Yeah, every single block, because every single block has a different color. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of Afghans kind of have a cohesiveness with its design, and though hers do with their design, their colors are not matching. So to use one solid color on all of them to border it would make each one stand out and be a little bit easier to assemble as well, because it will have the same number of stitches on every single side. Yeah. And kind of have a little bit more cohesiveness.
I think it's going to look great.
I really think that it's going to really make it pop.
Yeah.
I think it's going to look fantastic. I'm super excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah.
So my mom the other day ended up messaging me being like, hey, look what I found. Where did you find these at?
I found them at a local thrift store.
She got from Boy?
Yeah.
Oh, Boy. These are Boy yarn how-to starter pattern books. So like how-to/pattern books from the company Boy. This one is I Taught Myself Knitting, and hers is
I Taught Myself Crochet.
The book that I have was published in 2012, and hers was
2013.
Yeah, so they were right off from each other, but
each of the patterns are on the back. So I've got all kinds of crochet patterns that I can try, and she's got all kinds of knitting patterns that she can try.
Yeah, these are really, really cool ideas. I don't know if you can see it. There's one where it's a sweater that you make, but on the front there's mittens that you attach to the front so the kid can put their hands inside and keep them warm. And I'm really kind of leaning towards making one of those for my daughter. Yeah. An active shirt. She would love that.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think as someone who has been doing this craft for a long time, you just don't think about what you can still benefit from a beginner's book, because sometimes they have a new design, a new stitch, a new something to add to the craft that you never know. You never know. And I'm really digging some of these patterns. I would have never even thought to pick up the book. And my mom ended up getting it for 49 cents. Like, you don't have to just buy everything from, from the store. Like, my husband really is a big online thrifter instead of going to stores. He does like going to stores, but he likes to be on like Facebook Marketplace and like eBay and Craigslist and see what's out there, see what's just being given away, see what's being thrifted,
right,
and yard saled, and he finds stuff like this all the time. Like, I understand that not everyone might have the same neighborhood that we do, but like, I think you would be really surprised what you can find. Just depending on where you go. Like, I know that like by our local mall, there's a Goodwill there, and you will find the craziest clothes there. Like, when you go there, you get some really nice, like, fashion clothes at that Goodwill. That is because people end up, instead of returning clothes to the stores because they're being lazy, they return it there.
Right.
And you can get almost half the price that you would have.
For brand new clothes.
Yeah. And sometimes it's a matter of just finding it out. Just figuring out where the good deals are.
Well, I have found where Goodwill will put 3 skeins of like the Super Saver or whatever yarns, 3 full skeins into a bag and price it at $3 for the bag. So you get 3 full skeins of yarn for $3. And I pick them up because they're already bagged, they're still full skeins, they still have their labels on it. I know that I can use it, and I'm not going to find that deal anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's how I build up my stash, and I'm able to do it on a budget and not have to worry about I'm breaking the bank.
Yeah.
So
like I was mentioning on Facebook Marketplace, there's a lot of people that will end up, some of them are more minimalistic, or depending on the family member that they're helping out, or possibly they bought too much or whatever. But I know some people on Facebook, what happens is they didn't buy the right yarn.
Right.
Or something, or that yarn just doesn't fit with their style or what they want, and they need money for other yarns, so they end up posting that yarn on. And you just don't know. Sometimes you just don't know. You should just always keep your mind set on not always having to be in the store. Not that it's not fun, but you can find really good deals for new yarn.
Yeah, Bernat. I've seen Bernat. I've seen Super Saver. I've seen Woolies. I've seen all kinds of name brand yarn. And there's a whole lot that isn't name brand or that doesn't have the labels on it, but you know your yarn.
Yeah.
And I know 4-ply, and so that's what I tend to use. And so I look for that 4-ply in the stores, and generally I find it, and I can get it at a very good price, and I'm very happy with it. It goes on my shelf. I'm able to have all different kinds of colors that I would have never picked out myself. But you know, when you're making blankets, all different colors go together.
Yeah.
They go together well if you do it really conscientiously. So.
Yeah. And another thing, because I know as someone like me, I get really skeptical about buying yarn from Goodwills, because I'm always just like, oh, depending on the household it's coming from, I don't know what environment it's been in, and I get nervous.
Right.
But there are ways of soaking yarn to clean it.
Right.
As a skein.
Right.
Not having been made into something and then soaking it. I do believe there are ways that you can just fill a tub with water with something, and you just kind of put it in there, and then there's ways of drying it. I think that there are tutorials on YouTube where you can wash the yarn and get it where it's already clean before you even construct it into something.
Well, and I usually don't buy anything that has a bunch of, like, if it looks like it's, if it looks like it's got glitter or a bunch of stuff on it that you know that you're going to have a hard time getting off. Or if you see a bunch of cat hair or something on it. I'm not going to buy anything like that. I only buy the stuff that's usable to me if I was to take it home and start using it that day. That's the type I buy.
Pet hair is one thing. I feel like that's kind of something that can be taken off a little bit quickly. I'm considering more people that their environment of their home, it depending on your location, especially in Michigan, if it's really wet where you live, it can get musty. And depending on how it was stored in a previous location, it can travel and it can hurt your yarn or your good yarn if it's not stored correctly after it had just been transported from one place. Or, not that I'm trying to come off in any way mean or anything, but like if it was a smoking home.
Yeah.
Like for my family, we do not smoke just because we have a lot of asthma patients in the house, and it's just not for us.
Or heart patients.
And or heart patients. And I'm not trying to come off as being inconsiderate for people that do, but when it's coming from a home and you don't know how to properly take care of it, depending on the scenario it has been in before, Goodwill yarns can be a little bit harder. That's why sometimes I like to know where it's coming from. That's why I prefer like Goodwill, Craigslist, somewhere where I can talk to them and be like, hey, so what is the condition of this yarn? Like, did you just buy it and all of a sudden realize it was the wrong stuff? Or like, but I've been wanting to talk about something. It's kind of funny. After all the work that I did on the Bowser and the Mario and that hat, I was working every single day on that on a project, and I was going off of such a high speed of crafting that when I went to something so laid back as this cardigan, I didn't realize how much my hands had grown tense. And something that I feel like sometimes you just forget about is the fact that your hands need time to rest, need some sort of like care themselves. And a good thing to do, especially if you feel that your hands are getting tense or stressed, or like I was waking up with my thumb just it kept feeling like it was almost out of joint, or like popping popping. I just kept popping. Like I would have to when I would flex it, I'd feel it pop.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if it was just like inflammation that would happen overnight after being used, and then all of a sudden like just stopping, and it would just kind of move my joint just a little bit. And just there are exercises for hands and or stretches that you can do to make sure that you're taking care of your hands and not just your mind or your or not just when we talk about making this something that we do to help our health, our mental health, we don't mean to neglect our physical health in the process.
Right.
And projects have their own toll. I mean, just like anyone who is a runner, they have to take care of their leg joints and their hips and their feet and their, even instruments. If you're a musician, you have to take care of your hands, or however you play your instrument, because if it's something that you do regularly, it will affect the way that your body functions.
Right.
And you just don't think about it. I don't.
Right.
And I don't know. It was something that kind of just stuck in my mind, and I thought maybe just share about it. I do know that there are some knitter and crocheters and crafters on YouTube that do have like their own version of showing good hand exercises and stretches that you can do, especially if your hands start showing that it needs it. But even just doing it maybe every couple days or something.
I know that Knitty Natty from Love and Stitches, she has videos on what to do with your hands and arms and stretches and stuff like that, all the way, and your shoulders.
Because you're looking down, your neck can get strained too.
And you can use a ball on your shoulder with a wall and work those muscles out and she does a really good job of showing you what to do. So if you ever want to look up any kind of exercises for knitters, crocheters, people that use their hands like that, you could look her up. 11 Stitches, Knitty Natty. She does all kinds of exercises. And I know that when I get real tense, I tend to stretch my hands as far as they can go so that I can get that feeling going, or I'm doing stuff like this so that I can get that flexing going again. So because crocheting like I do, it normally, and I crochet with my right hand, and it's not normally my right hand that gets, it's the one that's holding the project that gets all cramped up.
Yeah.
And so and then I'm like, well, I need to put this down for a little while and do something else. So
for me, it's more of I hold my tension with my thumb on my main right hand.
Oh, so that's
and
why.
so when I'm doing this is what helps my steady gauge is my thumb's pressure, and then that joint gets really, really, I don't want to say abused, but it gets taken for granted when I'm doing it so often. And when I went at full force, I wasn't acknowledging that it needed some time down.
Right.
In this recent week, I've been able to be like, okay, I'm just gonna take it. Instead of working on busting through a row, I'm just gonna take it at its pace.
Right. Well,
You know?
maybe that's because I put the tension when I'm crocheting. I put the tension on this finger, and I'm holding the project. So maybe that's why this hand gets all cramped up.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah. So
we're figuring things out with you guys.
I just figured that, one thing, I know that some people deal with arthritis and stuff, and that's something I truly don't want to.
I don't want to ever have that.
I would never want to have that, but if you do, you already are working and focusing on your hand health. But there's things that we can do to make sure that what we use every day is being taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I thought that I would share with you.
And if you can find a good stress ball, maybe that would help too.
With strength.
Yeah.
Well, talking about things to make sure that you're doing well, I've been doing stuff, especially in the morning, because my kids are generally very well occupied in the morning. They don't require as much of my attention. They're kind of
Starters.
Yeah, they're very well entertained by themselves in the morning. I'm able to kind of just put in an audiobook, and regardless of whether I'm able to do my craft or if I'm cooking or cleaning or getting the dishes done from the night before,
right,
or whatever, I've been doing that. And I finished a book called Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. I think the book was from 1992. I want to say that that's what they said. It is a Christian book, but it teaches biblical. It has a biblical foundation, of course, as they are Christians in their beliefs, and there's plenty of verses to back up how their findings and what this book is talking about. This topic of boundaries, but it talks about how to say yes and how to say no. And this year, one of my biggest things this year is really working on how to be the best me that I can be, and how to be the best version of me I can be for not only myself but my family, and how that is in correlation to what God wants me to be.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to listen to God showing me that this is an opportunity to be able to benefit not only myself but others in doing so. And boundaries are something that I've had problems with in the past.
Yeah.
I would have panic attacks. I'd have so much anxiety because I didn't feel justified to say no. I didn't feel justified to say yes. I didn't know when it was appropriate to be like, okay, I need some me time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that if someone asks, I'm busy because I need time down.
Yeah, and I'm glad you know that now.
And it was rough, but to even listen to this where it goes into detail and biblical verses that just express it. Like boundaries are just a general fence. You need to know what is yours.
Right.
What is yours and what is others. Because there were some points in the book where I was like, oh, I am crossing the line when I'm doing that.
Right.
You don't even realize, because you don't realize if you don't have a good foundation as to where that boundary line is, you don't know that someone's taking advantage or you're taking advantage of someone else until you see it. And sometimes when you're dealing with someone that has a hard time setting boundaries,
right,
you don't even realize you're crossing their boundary, or you don't even realize that you're letting people cross yours. And then you have people that have no problem crossing boundaries, or people that, they don't, instead of a fence, they have a wall.
Yeah.
Because it has hurt. They have so much hurt.
Right.
And that book just was so enlightening. And I really just thought that I'd share it with you. It was a good audio read. And I did get it free. I used my Hoopla app, HOOPLA. If you have a library card that is active, you are able to use that app that you can add onto any digital device, and you plug in kind of like all the codes that are and numbers that are on your library card. You can put that into the app, and it will help you be able to have access to your online library. So like ebooks, audiobooks, stuff like that your library does have access to on their website. And that's one way to access that. You have that, or you have what's called Overdrive. Yeah. It is what it sounds like, over and then drive. It's all one word. It's another app that does the same thing, but it accesses a different part of the library where it's just primarily audiobooks and books. And you can only take out 5 books at a time. And there is wait lists depending on how many copies they have.
Right.
Whereas with Hoopla, you have endless amount of copies. So whatever they have on there, you have access to. But you can only access like 12. You can only have like 12 borrows within like a 30-day radius.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a... Whereas with Overdrive, if you bring something back, you can just get something. Right. So it's kind of like that Overdrive feels more like a actual library where it's like if it's not there, you have to wait.
Right.
You can only have so many at a time. Whereas Hoopla is a little bit more lenient. But I found it on Hoopla. I don't know if your library is going to have it, but it was so good. And now I'm listening to the same authors. They have a version called Boundaries with Kids, where you're actually teaching kids how to create healthy boundaries in their life so that they don't get abused, but they also learn how to respect other people's yes and no.
Well, that's good.
And so
good.
And it's biblical. Like I said, it is founded. Its foundation is
the Bible.
Biblical. If that means something to you, but even if you're not really big into Christ or the Bible, as I understand some people might not, it isn't that. It really has a lot to do with understanding the soul. So if you do believe in your soul, I really think you could benefit from it, because what's interesting is they explained that the soul's fence is your body.
Oh, wow.
And your soul is affected if your body has been abused.
Oh, wow. That's true.
And so if you are someone with a physical abuse history, that will affect your soul. And that's why God is so determined to teach you good boundaries, because it will affect you in a permanent way. And it's just so good. And I really do suggest it. And that's just one way that I'm kind of fulfilling my 2021 goal. And it's kind of like self-help, but also feeding myself with something good that will help my kids as well, and my family and my marriage. But
And
What's yours?
my goals aren't as lofty,
I'm sorry.
but they are. They're something that I would like to prove to myself that I can do, and that I would in 2021 I would like to make several blankets that are different from ones that I've ever made before. I've never made a chevron. I would really like to do that. My grandmother, the one that wanted her to learn how to read patterns, she had made a chevron, and I had always loved that blanket, but I never could figure out how anybody had ever done it. And I finally found a pattern for it, and it doesn't seem to be that hard to understand. I hope that I can do it, and do it in colors that will be pleasing to me. And I would also like to make a sampler of all kinds of different stitches so that I can learn stitches beyond what I already know. I would like to try all different, and I have a book at home that has all different kind of stitches in it, and I would like to try that in varying colors to try and bring out the shapes of the stitches once they're done and put into a blanket so that people can see that it's all different kinds. And I would like to make my own pattern this year. Try and figure out a way to make a pattern that is my own, that maybe I can put out there for you guys someday. That is a goal of mine, and maybe beyond that more patterns, but got to start with the first one first. So and that's the goals that I have set up for myself this year. I know that blankets take a little bit longer, so I'm not gonna go and make myself 12 different blankets in a year. I don't think I can do that, but I think that working on 2 of them and then maybe my own pattern for one would be a doable thing for the year. And while I've got God on my mind right now, I'm gonna talk about the scripture that came to me this morning and is again perfect for today. It's trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. And that's found in Psalms 37:3. And so you trust in the Lord and you do good. But you also dwell in his land, the land that he made. He created all this. And you feed on his faithfulness. He's going to be nothing but faithful to you.
Yeah.
And we need to be faithful to him as well, because he gave us all of this, all of it. Everything in this world was made for us, including the air we breathe. And if you think about that, it can overwhelm you. God is so good in so many ways, and we get to benefit from that every single day. And if you think about God in any kind of way, form, or anything, you're ready to say thank you. Thank you, Lord, for what you've given us. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. And thank you for the land we get to live in. Thank you for the beats of my heart, every breath that I take, that I get to live with the people that I get to live with, that I get to be doing the craft that I love to do most. I mean, there's so many things to be thankful for. But, so I'm going to just remind you again, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Psalm 37:3.
My verse that's really been on my heart, I'm really good at figuring out the addresses. I've been I grew up in church, and so when it's been like fed to you so long, it sometimes is just more repetitive than it's coming out. But sometimes you forget to actually.
You know the verse, but sometimes you don't know where it is.
But it's just, and this is a really popular one, but it's just, knock and the door will be answered, seek and you'll find, ask and it will be given unto you. I have been, like I said, I've been trying to better myself for my family's sake, and I've been reading books, and not only this one, but listening to books, but I've also been reading and trying to figure out good and better ways of dressing like my willful child, and how to pray for her, and how to not get as angry when my children get under my skin, and how to, because I don't want to instill any sort of, there is I guess part of this comes not only from a want to be better as a person, just in general, and wanting to be able to have better self-control, and be able to pass good self-control habits onto my children, but also I saw this post on Facebook that said there was a time that you end up realizing who your parents were. Your kids will also come to a time where they figure out who you really are. So if you want to make the change, do it now.
Yeah.
And there was just some truth to the whole, what you do now will last forever, in the sense that you're instilling a habit of whatever you do in the moment. If you don't change it, it will continue. And not that I am doing anything wrong, but I want to be better. I want to, the few flaws that I struggle with on the daily, I want to get those nicked out. I want to be able to show that I am growing along with my kids. I am learning along with them.
Right.
And I do realize that, and I'm trying to give myself grace for it, but there are things that I know I can learn. And I am learning to ask. God says, if you ask, I will give you wisdom, and, I will give you the peace and the understanding. With me, there's no spirit of fear, but a power and love and a sound mind. And I'm doing my best to pull on that wisdom. And I do realize there's a lot of wisdom to be learned in the Bible, and to feed yourself with those words so that you have it coming out of you and you know it. And because sometimes those confessions remind you, they ground you, they give you something to be able to be like, this is it. This is what I need. Yeah. This is what I am believing in. I am putting my faith in, because my God is faithful and He is going to make a perfect work.
Yes.
And and with His words, it says that whatever He says will not return void. What He has put into action will not come back undone. And so for me, if I'm using His words, that I can claim His promises, I know that I am feeding myself and being able to, I'm able to claim the promises of God, not only for myself, but my household, my children, my husband, which as a wife, I can pull on biblically. It's complicated in some way, like it's a bit of a Bible study, but as a wife, you're allowed to pull talents not only out of your children, but you can claim talents onto your husband in a way. And like there's a verse that says, that talks about how a man with great talents will not just be seen by normal men, they will be seen by kings.
Yes, that's right.
And for me, I'm always just like, God, let my husband's talents be seen by the right people so that he will be able to provide and enjoy doing it. Because one of the hardest things is to see your providing partner struggle with loving his job.
Yes.
Because it drains and it has an effect on the household.
Yes, it does.
That no good meal coming home is going to fix. And so for me,
yes,
it's one of those things where it's like, when I know that as a stay-at-home mom and housewife, I have a responsibility to my home to better myself, that if I'm doing it correctly, I can better them.
Yeah.
with what I'm saying, with what I'm doing, and how I'm acting, that it would pass on to them good boundaries, good abilities, and good promises that will, because my God is faithful.
Exactly.
And it will make me feel good. And so I'm learning to not only benefit from the wisdom of the Bible, but the wisdom of people that have learned from the Bible.
Yes.
And so it's okay to look out. It's okay to spread out. It's okay to figure out, God didn't just send people with talents like crafting. He sent people that can think through and be problem solvers, and they've written books to be able to help with that.
Bible study is so important.
Yeah.
And doing it yourself or having somebody else.
Self-help books.
Well, with the knowledge that they have already drawn from the Bible, and you're getting that from their knowledge, is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, my children are awake. I hear them over the monitor, and our battery's running low. So we're going to have to say goodbye.
Yes.
Stitch your way to happiness.
And make sure that you're enjoying what you do.
Yes.